Hello and welcome to Hockey Talk. Once again, my name is Jaret Schneider along with Matt Durnan. We've taken a couple of weeks off, Matt, with someone going on vacation. But we're back at it here once again. Now we'll finish off the rest of the season. We'll start off here with Chicago, obviously the only unbeaten team in regulation to this point, the only team with picking up wins or a point rather in every game. So what do you think about their performance to this point? Obviously the top team in the league.
Well, yeah, 2 weeks have gone by. We've not been here. Lots changed. That's the one thing that really has is that Chicago's remained pretty consistent. They've kept winning. Like what I see from them, very deep team, a lot of good youth, a lot of good skill guys. And the thing that I've noticed most recently is that with Crawford going down with an injury, Emery stepped in there and he's done a pretty admirable job filling in, done a pretty bang-up job, looking like the starter that he was when he was back in Ottawa or even with Philadelphia for a little bit there. Can't really say anything bad about Chicago. They might not be as physical as some of the teams that you see out there, but they have enough skill that they can kind of counter that and get by with it. No, absolutely.
You mentioned the skill that they do have. Obviously, Taves has had a decent year. He's picked up 12, 13 points. Kane stepped up really well, and even Hossa. I mean, he's down with an injury now, but Hossa's played very well at this point. You mentioned Emery stepping up in goal very well. The back end's been playing well, and I mean, all around, they played their first 9 out of 12 games on the road or something like that. So, I mean, now they've got 65, or a little while ago, a week ago, they had 65% of their games now at home, so a bit of an advantage moving forward. We mentioned the hot start in the first couple of weeks. They definitely had it. I mean, they were the number one team. They went 7-0 before losing in overtime. Now they've dropped a couple, but still up to 26, 28 points now. So, I mean, they look very well. We mentioned...
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you.
Go ahead.
That game against the first win that they had over San Jose when both of them were undefeated was, I think, really the turning point for both teams. Even you've seen Chicago has just kept going on fire, and since then San Jose has kind of slipped and they've been dropping some games. That was a bit of a shot to their confidence that game, and you've seen Chicago's just kept riding that momentum. So we'll see really how far they can go. But as you said, with Hossa getting hurt, I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, he is one of their great depth guys. Not necessarily the superstar that he was back in the day, but he's still a guy that you can't argue that he's one of their best talents out there. He is a goal scorer. He's a threat on the power play. He adds a lot to that team. Shootout specialist if you need him, when you do have to take it there. Won in shootout last night against Vancouver. Close game, though. They looked a little soft at the end, blew a bit of a 2-goal lead at the end, and Vancouver came back and did salvage the point. But I think that injury might have a little bit of effect on them. You saw Chicago kind of was wearing down at the end of that game. Who knows what that'll do. Speaking of injuries, we've had a couple other ones. What do you think about the Karlsson injury? How's that going to affect Ottawa?
Well, Karlsson, obviously it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt Ottawa. I mean, he's the number one defenseman in the league, offensive defenseman. He does everything. He does power play. He's the quarterback on that power play, even with Spezza and Alfredson. I mean, he makes the whole team look good and makes the whole, especially the offense, look good. I mean, he's good defensively. His plus-minus is good every year. I mean, Karlsson, obviously, with him out, it's going to hurt Ottawa. Same with Hossa. I think it's going to hurt Chicago. I mean, even with the depth that they have, I think injuries, we mentioned that early on at the beginning a few weeks ago as well, too, that injuries can hurt teams, and especially with the hot start that Ottawa had. I mean, they were right up there fourth in the conference, and now with Karlsson out, Spezza's out, I mean, I think we're going to start to see them drop a little bit. Also, with that Karlsson injury, what do you think about Matt Cook? Obviously, I don't think it was on purpose. I mean, there was a couple of shots that maybe it was intentional. What do you think about that?
I think it was just kind of a freak play, to be honest. A lot of people are kind of on the fence about it, especially Sens owner Eugene Melnyk, who's really furious about it. But the guy has a history. Yes, you can't deny that he has been the proponent of some pretty dirty hits and has, ended a couple of guys' seasons, if not careers, if you look in the case of a guy like Marc Savard. But I can't say that was intentional. I mean, it's every replay is looked at in super slow motion, and what you have to realize is that when the play is happening, it's happening so much faster than what you're seeing. You can't say that, at a speed that these guys are moving, that he could lift his leg, chop down a guy at that speed. It was a case he kind of lost his balance. He went to go and grab his balance, stepped on Karlsson's leg. It's an unfortunate thing. I think his reputation kind of precedes him, and that's unfortunate, but I think anybody else this happens to, you kind of look the other way. It's just unfortunate that he is Matt Cook.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, it was Matt Cook. With the history that he's had, he's been suspended 5 or 6 times now, obviously. I don't think this was. I mean, if you look at the way they go into the boards together, they're both kind of up on top of each other. They're going into the boards together. They've got their arms up on each other.
Could have very easily happened the other way if it was Cook going in first, right?
I mean, Carlson got underneath of Cook and got Cook up, and that's what obviously got the left leg out, I think, up in the air. And then when he's coming down, he's not going for the back of the ankle. That's definitely. I mean,
as I said, at that speed, there's no way that you can be. And if you look even closer, he's looking away. He's looking trying to see where the puck is. He was on the right side, and his left leg comes down. There's no way he's looking where he's aiming with his leg. You can't really say that there was any intent. What are your thoughts on Melnick's comments, though?
Well, obviously, Eugene Melnick threw out these comments about Pittsburgh and why they're employing players like this, and I mean taking shots not only at Cook but at the Pittsburgh Penguins organization, and I don't think that's something that should be allowed. I mean, obviously, I don't think he was fined or anything for it, but
a little unnecessary.
No, I mean, I think it was unnecessary. Obviously,
I think maybe he's just kind of blowing off some steam because he's a little bit upset that he did lose. He already lost Spezza, now he's losing another superstar player. I think maybe that's the way of blowing off steam, but could have been done a little bit more tastefully, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a shot at the Pittsburgh Penguins organization, shot at Mario Lemieux and all the everything that they have and everything that they've kind of went for this year. I mean, obviously, Matt Cook does have a suspension, and I mean, it is too bad that it happened to him, who does have a suspension, and I mean, that's kind of the reasoning for all of this downpour after it. But I don't know. Other than that, I think his comments were a little bit untasteless.
Yeah, it was made out to be a little more than it really should have been. So, I don't like it really.
Other than that, I guess we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with Section 2.
Section 2.
Hello and welcome back to Hockey Talk. My name is Jaret Schneider, along with Matt Durnan. We'd like to thank everyone for watching in Flin Flon and the Paw, as well as here in Thompson. And just today, recently, we got some fresh news here. Lindy Ruff has been canned by the Buffalo Sabres organization. He had been head coach there for just about 17 years, and he'd won over 550 games. Did some stuff with Canada, I believe, at the World Juniors and things like that. He was helped coach a few things with Team Canada and Canada Hockey. So what are your thoughts on him being canned today?
It's sad, especially when you see a guy who's been there for that long, right? It's hard to picture Buffalo without Lindy Ruff behind the bench. I'm not a Sabres fan, I don't really have too much of an opinion on them, but it is sad to see a guy who's been there for such a long time to get canned. But as an NHL hockey coach, you are hired to be fired. No one is there forever, really. Good enough coach, had some runs. They lost that one cup run in, I don't believe I remember, but they lost to Dallas in the infamous Brett Hull, was he in the crease goal.
It's 99.
No, I think it was a matter of time. Buffalo's having a bit of a rough start this year. They're out at 6-10, I think is their record right now. They're having a little bit of a rough go of it. And I think it was just, the clock was kind of ticking and they were just waiting to basically kind of pull the chute out and get rid of him. Not sure where Buffalo goes from here. They've hired, Ron Rolston has been named the interim head coach. I don't know, but who's out there? Who do you think is the next, legitimate good fit for Buffalo as the head coach?
I don't know. I know that Ron Wilson's name is out there. I mean, being fired from the Leafs. I don't know. I mean, it's tough. Crawford did some stuff with the TSN panel, but other than that, I mean, I don't really know at this point. I think it's too early for me to say, but I know from looking back on Buffalo's season, obviously, like they're 6-10-1. They're out of the playoffs. I mean, a tough division. It's tough for them to climb back in, so just throwing an intern coach in for the rest of the season. Maybe not packing it in, but trying to salvage something. So we'll see how that goes for him. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Who do you think would be a good fit for them next year?
I just want to make note that he said tough division. The division, the Northeast, that we made a joke of at the start of the season and said it was going to be a laughingstock that Boston was going to run away with, and now Montreal's leading the division. Leafs winning record, Ottawa winning record. I don't know what's really going on. This shortened season's really throwing a big kink into things. But what was the question?
Thoughts on who might be coming. But first, actually, the one thing I would name, or who I kind of relate Lindy Ruff to, is actually Andy Reid in Philadelphia, the Eagles coach in NFL. I mean, he'd been serving for over 10 years. I mean, it was kind of a matter of time. I mean, it's kind of like when you look at a goalie, too, like Martin Brodeur. I mean, obviously, you don't want to, or Derek Jeter, you don't want to pull the chute right out from him, but I think it is about time. It's slow decline. I mean, he hadn't won a cup. Obviously, he's got lots of wins, but other than that, that's who I would compare him to. But who do you think is going to fill in next year? Who maybe will be the permanent coach moving forward?
It's hard to say. I mean, I don't have a magic crystal ball that I can really rub and look at it. It's, as you said, it is not so much a tough division. This year is, but you could argue that it's one of the most high-profile divisions in hockey when you do have teams like Boston, Montreal, Toronto. You got 3 original 6 teams in that division. There's a lot of spotlight in that division. Buffalo kind of is able to skirt by under the radar because they're kind of that smaller market in comparison with those big 3. And then, I mean, even Ottawa alongside, you could argue, is a pretty big market as well. But you you kind of got to have thick skin if you're in that market. You know, you are focused on because you do have a lot of games against those big guys. So would Ron Wilson be a fit? I don't know, because he didn't really have a lot of success in Toronto. Could he fit back in that division? Would he want to go back to that division and be facing his former team so often? I'm not completely sure, because when Wilson did get let go from San Jose, he got about as far away as possible and went all the way up to Toronto. So who's out there? You mentioned Crawford. I don't know. What I'm kind of more interested to know as far as Ruff, because he is such, you know, a reputable name that's out there. I'm more interested in, you know, where does he go? Where do you think he maybe ends up in the future? Does he get on as an executive somewhere? Does he look for a coaching position? Does he go and join the TSN panel?
I mean, I could see him becoming a new head coach somewhere else. Obviously not right now. Someone's not going to fire a team to hire Lindy Ruff, but towards the end of the year, he very well could end up. I mean, I don't want to throw too many names out there, but I think like Washington, who's had trouble.
And they just let Boudreaux go recently as well, right?
Boudreaux goes. I mean, they're another fresh coach. Who knows? He could get fired and then moved on. Some of the other weaker teams too. I mean, he could end up anywhere. I mean, it's really tough to say at this point. But then I was watching a game on Monday rather, and it was Colorado and Nashville.
Oh, I know.
And Matt Duchene had came right in. I mean, the puck was flipped. It hit a couple of D-men as they were crossing, and then he was offside by about 4 feet.
Oh,
so I got to get your thoughts on this. I was looking at that. The linesman's right there. The ref's on the other side. Obviously, the ref kind of had a
the ref was right there.
But he went with
linesman. Sorry.
But he went with the linesman call because the linesman was right there. Because I think everyone in the building saw that it was offside. Just the one linesman missed it.
Well, Chris Mason, the goaltender for Nashville, unfortunately, he saw it. Even he wasn't really caught. You know, he was caught off guard. He kind of stood up and looked at it like, "What do you mean that's not offside?" And then Duchene kind of went roof on him. But I don't know. I heard you yelling. This guy yells. You said you got to come look at this brutal call. And I never thought I would see something as blatantly terrible as that. I mentioned the Brett Hall. He was in the crease, wasn't he? This is bar none one of the worst missed calls I've seen since I've watched hockey. I mean, other than Gretzky's high stick on Gilmore.
It didn't necessarily count the game. I mean, Colorado did win by 1, but it was early on in the game.
By 1, that's all they need.
It was a second, third goal in a 6-5 hockey game, so it didn't necessarily predict the outcome. But I mean, it could have had something to do with it only in a 6-5 game.
I think I don't like. I've heard some floating around some things about they need challenges, they need review, they need this, that, and the third. I don't want it to turn, as much as I love the NFL, I don't want it to turn to the NFL where there's a replay on every single play. You have to look at it. Yeah, you got challenge flags on every single play. But I would not be too adverse to adopting the NFL stories strategy of review every scoring play. You know, if it's a definite scoring play, you're losing 5-6 seconds. You say, yes, that was a definite goal. You know, there was no hand pass. There was nothing, greasy about it. But if you look at that and say, okay, it was a scoring play. Duchene scores on that. You take a look at it and say, okay, no, he was offside. Bring it back. It's a face-off outside of the blue line.
Yeah.
You know, you can kind of look at that. You know, you do goal reviews. You see goal reviews on almost 1 in every 3 or 4 goals anyways, especially for the ones that are in tight around the crease. You know, why not say, okay, we're just going to look at every goal, make sure that everything is, up to speed and checks out so that we don't have things like this happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you mentioned we don't want to see challenge flags, don't want any of this. I think, like you said, goal review on every goal would definitely be an advantage. I mean, obviously you don't want to take the human error out of it because, I mean, with the linesman making the call, I mean, you don't want to, kind of points fingers at him saying, like, look what, I mean, kind of rubbing it in his face. But, I mean, you got to get the call right? Mm-hmm. Especially on a play like that on an offside that's that bad. Maybe penalties, don't review penalties that are going to result in goals. Maybe, but I think definitely plays like that offside, maybe an icing every now and then. Mm-hmm. If it's going to result in a goal or, something like that, or a face-off change, like, for example, an icing, I wouldn't mind seeing that being reviewed every once in a while. I mean, if one of the refs sees something and wants to look at it, and they have a little bit of a huddle, I mean, why not go take a look at it for sure, right?
No, that's a good point. I mean, especially with the icing, I really hadn't actually thought of that when you think about, a tight 50-50 race where the defenseman and the forward are both going for it. Maybe the defenseman does get there first, ref doesn't catch it forward, doesn't actually touch the puck because the defender touched the puck first, puck squirts out front, team scores, and the defender's going, hey, I touched it first. You know, maybe the ref can say, okay, you know what, we're going to go upstairs, we're going to look at it. Because if it's a goal-scoring play, you might as well look at it. And you find out, no, you know what, the defenseman got there first, it's wrong, it's an icing, we're going to bring it down the other end of the ice. Where they go with this, who knows? I mean, FIFA just announced that in the next World Cup, I know we're a hockey talk show, but this is soccer, it's a different sport, but FIFA just announced that they would be introducing goal line technology in the next World Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's been a slew of missed calls on goal line shots where the ball goes up and under the crossbar, drops down below the goal line, and because they don't have that technology, they don't review goals. teams miss out, right? So, and again, that's one goal. Nashville lost by one. If they end up missing the playoffs by 1 or 2 points, who's going to say that? Like, they're going to go back and point that and say, look, you screwed up. This game could have gone a completely different direction if you had not called that a goal. So I think that's something that could definitely be looked at.
Yeah, so that pretty much wraps up our second section. As far as picks go the past couple of weeks, we won't go through every game because there was, the 21 games.
We're ripping it up
games.
now, though.
But we'll rip through it quick. We're both over 500, but we'll be right back, and we'll go through that in just a second. Hockey Talk. My name is Jaret Schneider, along with Matt Durnan. Obviously, we're both over 500 in picks now, so I'll throw it over to you. How are we looking?
Well, we both had I had a pretty slow start personally. You had a pretty decent start. After 3 weeks, we were both about even around 500. Picked up in the last 2 weeks. I went 6-1 2 weeks ago on my picks. You went 5-2. We still kept to our picks, even though we weren't on the air. We still made our picks, kept honest with it. I promise you, Scouts honor all that. And then in week 5, we both went 5-2. So 2 straight weeks of winning records, and that brings my total up to 18-14. So, average, just a little bit above 500. And you are 19-13. You got one more win than me. But both of us above 500.
Pretty
looking good. It's getting a little bit easier now, right?
Yeah,
it's not that
right.
we're picking easier games, but now that you've kind of seen every team play 4, 5, 6 games.
Chicago's beating everybody. Right?
Yeah, Chicago. Pick anyone that plays Chicago to lose. You kind of have an idea of who's going to do what on certain nights, and it's getting a little bit easier now. So we'll look at
some teams like the Ducks. I mean, the Ducks have played very well, and then there's other teams like the other end, like LA, who started to drop off, who I thought was going to do really well. I thought they would be right up there. I thought contending after winning the Cup, I thought they'd be up there, and they've kind of slouched off. So I mean, not that, like you said, not that it makes picks easier, but I mean, when
it's definitely made it a little bit. You have a little bit more of like a base for research. You can kind of look at it and say, this team doesn't do well on the road. This team hasn't been doing well at home. They haven't done well against this team. So it makes it, we've got a little bit more that we can base off of, and I think it's kind of helped our picks. And then hopefully we can kind of ride this out. We don't go into any like kind of Maple Leafs type losing streaks and really blow our nice records here. But for this week, we're going to start out tonight. We got a pretty interesting matchup. Philly, who had a rough start.
Yeah, they've started out pretty
Still
slow.
kind of going rough. I'm still saying that they're not making the playoffs, but they're playing in Pittsburgh tonight, who's looked good. But Philadelphia also coming off a big 7-0 victory over the Islanders.
Yeah.
So they're riding a big wave of emotion. They've got to have some confidence in them. They're going into Pittsburgh tonight. So what do you think about that one?
Obviously, Philly, like you said, coming off a 7-0 win over the Islanders, but the Islanders are the Islanders. I mean, it wasn't a very good game for the Islanders.
Beat Pittsburgh.
The Islanders beat Pittsburgh, but I don't know. I got to go with Pittsburgh at home. I mean, Pittsburgh, one of the top teams in the league. I mean, it's like you said, basing our knowledge around some of the way things have gone. And I mean, I think Pittsburgh over Philly tonight in Pittsburgh.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'll stick with you on that one. I think you're pretty on point with that one. Pittsburgh is the better team. Philly, that might have been like a one-off, that game against the Islanders. Their offense really blew up. Brizgalov really wasn't tested. He's played a little bit better than I expected him to, but he really wasn't tested in that game. And the Islanders just looked poor in that game. So. And
then tomorrow night, we got Thursday night.
Thursday night, we're looking at another kind of interesting one. I like this one. The Rangers, who've looked really mediocre. They lost last night to Montreal in their home building. New York lost in Madison Square Garden to Montreal. Montreal playing well, not to discount them, but the Rangers were supposed to be contending for top in the East. Facing Ottawa, who is banged up and injured, but is coming off of back-to-back wins. So this is kind of a tough one. It's a toss-up. It's in Ottawa. What do you think?
So we get the Rangers and the Sens. I mean, obviously we mentioned the Sens without a couple of their key players, but Rick Nash out now, day-to-day or whatever he's out with. So, I mean, injuries affecting both sides. I've heard you say before, the Rangers rather, more of a one-line team, definitely with their 3 big guns, missing one of them, so slows down that line a little bit. And as far as the rest of the team, it kind of trickles down. So actually, I'm going to go a little bit off. I'm going to go with Ottawa on this one. In Ottawa, at home, to the Rangers. I think the Rangers, they're going to kind of slump here a little bit. I mean, they dropped one last night to Montreal, and I'm taking Ottawa at home.
Okay. I'm going to go against you on that one. Nothing against you, but I've picked the Rangers twice this year. They've lost both times, so I'm just going by the rule of threes that, third time's a charm, and they're due to not let me down for once in their lives, which would be nice. So Friday, another big matchup. Earlier in the season, we've picked before San Jose visiting Chicago. San Jose we thought was going to be top of the West. They've kind of fallen off. Chicago still riding, but this will be the pressure game. This will be the game for Chicago to break the record for most consecutive games to start a season with a point. They've already broken the points record, as you had mentioned before we got on the air. So what do you think? Chicago breaks the record or San Jose upsets them?
Well, I mean, it's a tough game. San Jose's turned it around. I mean, San Jose and Chicago both started 6-0, 7-0, whatever, but then San Jose had ended up dropping 5 straight with 2 of them in overtime. They've now won a game again, so they're kind of getting things on the right track, but I just got to go with a gut feeling. I got to go with San Jose. I think San Jose is going to beat Chicago. I mean, not necessarily that'll be in regulation. Chicago still could beat the record if they lose in overtime, but I think San Jose is going to get 2 points out of this game on Friday.
I'm going to stick with you on that one, actually. I was going to say Chicago, that injury, we haven't seen them play an entire game without Hossa. They did kind of, teeter off at the end against Vancouver last night. Still with the win in the shootout, but they're looking a little bit more vulnerable. They look like they're about ready to lose. Who knows if they bring in Crawford or Emery. We still don't really know who's going to be playing that game. I think San Jose, they've lost 2 games already to Chicago this year. I think they're ready to kind of come in, and they're going to be angry, and they're going to be hungry for this one. So I'm going to stick with San Jose on that one as well.
Okay, so that's Friday night. Then Saturday we have Hockey Night in Canada. I mean, there's a bunch of games.
Saturday night, we pick Hockey Night in Canada every night. We never pick a Canadian team. I don't know why. We seem to always go with the American teams, or we go out west. But we're going with Colorado in the rule breaker, Matt Duchene, against LA, who struggled. Both teams kind of struggling, but both teams could kind of, I see, be kind of those cusp 8-9 teams that this is kind of a make or break game for both of them, I guess.
Yeah, I think both teams right now are sitting in about 10th and 11th together. But I think I could go with LA on this one. I mean, Colorado, obviously, they picked up the win last night. Each team will play another game before Saturday, but I got to go with LA on this one. I think Quick has really turned it around. I mean, he's my goalie in fantasy hockey, so I kind of got to go with him. And he's really picked it up. I mean, he got a win the other night against the Oilers last night. And I think as long as they start him on Saturday, I think I'm taking LA.
Yeah, again, I'll agree with you there. So it's in LA. I don't know how well Colorado travels. I'm not 100% up to date on their road record, but as you said, LA did look good last night against Edmonton, a high-powered offense who poured in 6 against Colorado last week on Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah.
So if LA is able to shut down a high-powered offense like Edmonton, there's not much saying that they can't shut down Colorado's offense as well. So I'm going to go with LA in that one. Sunday, Great Western Conference matchup. We're going to go, again in the West, we're going to go with Vancouver visiting Detroit. Vancouver picking it up as of late.
Vancouver's really picked it up.
Yep. Detroit also has looked good, though.
Detroit's looked good, too.
They did lose to Nashville just the other night in OT, but for a team that gets as banged up as they are, they're missing Franson right now to an injury, Lidstrom retiring, Holmstrom retiring, and they just keep plugging away and keep finding ways to win. So this is kind of a tough pick. It's in Detroit as well. So
yeah, I mean, Datsuk obviously scored a great goal against the Predators that night. Zetterberg's really stepped up. I mean, he's got the C on now, got a hat trick one night, so I think Detroit's really picked it up. So, I mean, but Vancouver, too, they've really been strong. I mean, they beat the Ducks a couple of times. They beat the Wild. They beat the Sharks a little while ago. So, I mean, everything's looking good for Vancouver now. They have goalie controversy, but the good kind of controversy with both guys playing phenomenal. So, I mean, I'm going to jump backwards. I'm actually going to go with Detroit on this one.
Okay. Okay, just for argument's sake, because we've picked the same pick the last 2 ones, I'll just go with Vancouver in this one. Hockey Night in Canada, not Hockey Night in Canada, sorry, Sunday night game. I think Vancouver is just the better team, especially getting Kessler back now, and David Booth just came back the other night. Tough loss, but did show a lot of grit and character against Chicago, who is the best team in the NHL. No one would argue that, and showed a lot of character to actually grind out the 1 point. I think that Chicago's a much better team than Detroit is, and I think Vancouver is just too deep, and I think with all their 3 lines firing, that they're going to be able to actually overcome and beat Detroit.
All right, we're quickly running out of time, but we got 2 more games left. We'll get to those.
Monday, Montreal versus Ottawa in Ottawa. What do you think?
Montreal and Ottawa. Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, Montreal's leading the division now. Ottawa with their injuries. I picked Ottawa earlier this week, so I'm going to go with Montreal just on that basis that I've already picked Ottawa once this weekend. I mean, they're a good team. They're a strong team, but Montreal's just looked too well off the bat. I mean, Carey Price has played phenomenal, so I got to go with the Habs on Monday.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with that one as well. I like Montreal to win that. Ottawa, they've got a couple of wins, but with their injuries, they're just way too thin. I don't think they're going to be able to beat Montreal.
Tuesday, last game of the week.
Final game, a real thriller. We got Carolina leading that division against division rival Washington.
Ooh, that is a thriller.
All over the place. You don't know what you're getting every night with Washington. Usually it's pretty bad. But in Washington, Carolina, the Stahl brothers against Ovechkin and himself.
Yeah, you mentioned the Stahl brothers. I got to go with Carolina. I mean, I think they're too. No, I don't want to call them deep because they're not having the year obviously that they would want, but I mean with both Stalls and Skinner and Cam Ward back in
Skinner's
net.
hurt right now, I think.
Skinner, is he out?
Well, as of today, he's hurt. He had an upper body injury against
okay.
Toronto, I believe it was. They don't know if it's a concussion or what. They've been kind of playing it close to the vest, but...
I'll throw Carolina in on that one on next Tuesday.
Okay, I would agree with you there. I think Carolina is just a better team. I don't think Washington's very good at all, so...
Washington, they've struggled. They've had their struggles. I mean, so that's picks this week. So we'll be back on it again next week. Any closing thoughts?
Not too much, really. I think that it's going to be interesting coming up to see Chicago try to go for this record. I think that's going to be a really good game. That's definitely a can't-miss game coming up on Friday of Chicago and San Jose. Definitely a game that's, you're going to want to tune in. That's history is possibly could be made, and regardless of what the result, it'll be a good game, I would say. Other than that, no, just enjoying it.
All right, so that'll pretty much do it for this week. We haven't been a canceled show, although we've been off the past couple of weeks, so we are back on now. Paul was on vacation, but we look forward to continuing it through the rest of the year. For Matt Durnan and Jaret Schneider, thanks for watching.